All right, I'm kind of on hold. This was the mag install, right? So there's the Morris X5. The gears do fit in there, but when I started looking at my intake cam for the front cylinder, I noticed it's sort of shiny, right? And that's not usually the way cams look. And we're talking shiny on the lobe right there, right? Usually they have more of a melanized finish, like this. And they'll get a little shininess to them, almost like how the bearing rides right there. But the other one, it's just a little too shiny. So I think before we go any further, and if that cam does let go or that roller lets go, I would hate to see cam material getting up into these two gears right here and destroying a brand new mag. So I'm going to cover a couple other little details and some stuff that I've changed on the bike. I know it had an S&S carb, but I wanted to run something really cool. So I sourced a new old stock lake injector. This is a 38 millimeter. There is no float bowl. So the pressure from the fuel tank, the weight of the fuel gets into the hose, right? And that works on the needle. And that's what creates that's why they call it an injector, but that's what creates the fuel flow for the motor. A couple other things. I did a cop oil tank, so I had an early cop tank, and it was just sitting around, and I didn't really like the octagon tank that was on the bike originally. So I didn't want to destroy the bike and change around mounts or anything. So I found this cop tank, basically cut all the bungs out of it, cut the bottom out of it, and made it fit in this little tiny spot right here. And it's super clean that way, right? Which kind of made me have to go to the mag because I didn't have anywhere to put the battery anymore. So I had to make the down tube fit around inside the tank. I wanted to keep an oil filter. So you can kind of see in there that, wow, it was a super tight fit. I'll show you when I get on the other side. I changed out the rear rim. The rear rim is 18. It was originally a 16. Buchanan's did the rims, WM6, so that was the widest rim that was available back then, and that was the widest tire. It was an IRC. You would have seen it on H2 Kawasaki's, 750 Hondas, 900 Cowies. So that was the hot tire for the super bikes back in the day, right? Still kept the Hurst Earhart brakes, kept the Hallcraft hub. You might remember it had a fully polished engine case when I first got it. And if you look at the front right here, somebody polished one side of the case, somebody else polished the other side of the case, and they didn't leave the pieces together. So, when the motor was in the bike, none of this stuff lined up. These seams didn't line up. There was steps and everything. So I had Paul get in there and go and shape as much as he could. I mean, obviously I didn't want him to take more down here. And once the barrel's on, you won't even really see this. But down in the front right here, when it's mounted in the bike, all this will be super clean now, especially when something's polished. It's like a paint job that doesn't have good body work. It's all ripply and looks like crap. So I wanted Paul to go in there and fix up all this area. They needed to clean all this up. You can see I shaped it, got a little artistic with it. It fits the tappet bosses perfect when they're in here. He just cleaned it all up, right? It's got a cut down timing cover. So he cleaned up where the oil pump will be. You can kind of tell. Shape this area. Shape the top of the motor. So when it's all polished up, it's going to look like a mirror, right? That's the next step for that. But getting back to the bike, I sourced, the bike didn't come with a seat when I got it. So I was lucky enough to find a new old stock drag specialty seat. Man, it fit perfect along the rails. But this down tube right here, these outboard tubes that make up the triangle, or the chain stays, whatever you want to call them, they're right in the middle of this tube, right? So there was a gap. Since this is 1 inch and the tube inside is 1.5 inches, there's a 1/4 inch gap between here and the seat when this seat sits on that tube. So I was like, man, how am I going to make that up? So I took the seat all apart, and then I got some white ash hardwood, and I milled it and put it in there, put a 1/4 inch on each side, so the seat actually now sits on the rails and on the down tube. And then I made these half clamps that you can see up in there, right? So I basically took a piece of 1.5 inches, cut it in half. I think I did 1 5/8. Cut it in half, put those spacers on the side, welded it all together, and put some threaded bungs, some nutserts in the seat base just to kind of clean it all up. I didn't want to have to drill any extra holes or anything to mount the seats. I made a couple leather washers, you know, just out of an old belt for those UL seat or fender brackets. So everything I've changed could be put back to stock, right? If anybody ever really wanted the bike to be 100% stock, I've kept all the pieces and everything. You know, putting the mag in, it looks a little newer than the original Fairbanks mags. And I was going to put an XR750 Fairbanks mag on it, but it was really becoming just way too much work because everything just wouldn't fit inside. So what I did was I got the X5, and then I said, you know, I'm going to get it with a red cap like a Mallory, get some Mallory wires for it, some early stuff, and I just happened to find a spool of the early super wire, right? This stuff's from the 70s. I remember having this on my Camaros and Mustangs. So super core, 7mm, nice bitchin' wire. The Champion 10 ohm resistor caps are also new old stock. And then I was just lucky, man. I was looking around for a way to run the wires. And I was like, man, I need some sort of, you know, wire separator up on the top. And I just found this, I think it was left over from a big block Ford build. This little Moroso, you know, 2-wire clip. It might be small block Chevy too, for all I know. I couldn't remember, but man, it just really sets it off nice. So just touching on the details, you know, I'll be back on the build probably next week sometime. So once I get, you know, a couple other cams. So that's it. We'll check back pretty soon. I'll let you know what else I'm working on, guys.